Okay, well, my sleep schedule is all kinds of messed up now. I do this to myself whenever I work really hard on a project, and this is the first time I've really had to myself in a long time. I've imposed a lot of really harsh deadlines on myself for the Highlander Jaguar review, which was a lot of pressure, and of course Howling 2, which was that one had its own pressures, and I'll do a commentary on that one to explain exactly the there were problems with that one, and I'll get into that later. And it was pretty much all my fault, but whatever. It's my anniversary with Scarlett on Sunday, which will be awesome. The thing that's really freaking me out most right now is I have an appointment with my cardiologist on November 3rd, which is kind of a scary one. I I have this condition where I pass out if I do any really strenuous physical activity, and I'm on medication for that now, and uh, it's just kind of it's a very fluid situation. It's kind of hard to describe what's going on with it, but I haven't been well lately, and I'm not sure really what's causing it. If it's an aggravation of the condition I have, or if it's simple, pure and simple anxiety. I don't think it is, but I guess I'd be the worst judge of my own levels of anxiety. I don't know. So this November 3rd, I have to go see a cardiologist. They're going to put me on a treadmill, and I'm really nervous about that one. Not because I think I'm going to die. It's because I'm almost certain that I'm going to pass out, and it's never a good thing when that happens to me. It feels like I'm dying. You know, it's really one of the scariest things that can happen. That's happened to me, because you know it it feels scary. You know, it's really not pleasant. And getting on a treadmill and intentionally causing an episode, and they don't. Again, my cardiologist doesn't think it's going to happen. I really do. It's not pleasant, and I'm not looking forward to that at all. I've been kind of worrying myself. Actually, the worry is probably worse than what's actually going to happen when I go see the cardiologist. I'll be in a hospital. I'll be fine, but it's not going to be fun. But I was going to sit down. Oh, and that's another thing I have to do. I promised myself I was going to do a lot of stuff after Halloween, after I did Howling 2, and not the least of which being the video editing job, which I haven't paid as much attention, nearly any attention, as it really deserved. And I'm sorry about that. I know a lot of people are really excited about that, and I will look into that. It's probably the next thing I'm going to do, actually, once I've done with this. I've been meaning to do what I'm about to do for a while now, and it may not be all that exciting, but when I got in the mail like a week and a half ago, I was really excited, and I still haven't opened them. And if you don't know, hang on, I got my Dungeons and Dragons Dungeon Master Kit, and the more colorful one, the Gamma World role-playing game, which, of course, I looked into very briefly at PAX. I was very, very excited to see that. I was actually kind of hoping they'd have that stuff for sale, and the only thing they really had for sale was Castle Ravenloft, which was okay. Hang on. And I do play on Sundays. I haven't played in a while because I haven't been well, of course. And it's Halloween this Sunday, so we won't play. And I guess some of you are curious as to my thoughts on the not just 4th edition, which I kind of liked, but they've kind of done this relaunch of basically of D&D 4th edition. And that's kind of a complex question, because it's kind of hard to describe exactly what the D&D Essentials line is. I'm still not entirely sure what they were going for with this one. Sorry, I'm thirsty. It's almost to me like, if you don't know, the D&D Essentials books, I called them like a streamlining or a back to basics approach, and the PR reps were kind of, they didn't want to classify it as that. They're like, it's more options, it's more variation, and that's true. But what it says to me is what happened to 4th edition is exactly what I was afraid was going to happen to 4th edition, in that, like Rifts, we ran into this problem where they started off with a really good, really balanced group of classes. in the original Player's Handbook, and then they added more in the second Player's Handbook, and they were okay. And then they added more and more and more and more, and so there's like 30 different basic races now. Races that don't even make fucking sense. I even forget what they're called, like those immortal guys. Weird stuff, man. And there's a ton of different classes, and the problem is these classes are no longer even pretending to be balanced. I'm sure they tried, but they're not. They're just weird, and in many cases they overlap. And the real problem with that is there's really only 4 classes in D&D 4th edition. Striker, Defender, Leader, and Controller. That's about it. And those roles, the classes fall into those 4 roles. And it's not always clear what those roles are going to be. So you've got the Fighter. And so the Fighter is not a Striker class. The Fighter is not a DPS class, as you might refer to it in a video game. The Fighter is a Defender, which you wouldn't think that. And so not only was it it was fine as long as you knew that, but it was a little obfuscated that you didn't know that. And there were a lot of classes that pretty much did the same thing. And so it made the uniqueness of various classes very diminished. For instance, a cleric is not really all that special anymore, because a lot of guys do what a cleric does, like a bard. They don't do it quite as well as what a cleric does, but like a guy throws healing surges, you got a warlord throws healing surges, and so like the healer aspect of things is no longer all that unique. And so, as I was afraid, there were a lot of classes that weren't balanced, and the identity of so many classes got just diminished in this morass. And so that was like the only thing that they could do to spice up D&D, was just throw more new classes in, and then all of a sudden you've got these guys who are playing really weird races and really weird classes, and it doesn't really feel like D&D anymore. So I think what happened was, I think somebody at Wizards of the Coast looked at D&D and said, why can't we just... It's almost like they went, the rules are fine. The rules are good. We created a really solid system here. But where we really fucked up was the character classes and the races and the various other aspects that just kind of became this muddle that didn't really work. And so that's really what the change here is in D&D Essentials. The rules... This is the Rules Compendium, which is really just like a condensed version of all the rules. It's basically like a handbook if you're going to a regular tabletop game. This doesn't tell you anything that's not in the Player's Handbook, really, or the DMG. It's just like all the rules from those 2 books condensed into one. It's basically like a handbook you travel with to another game, or like a quick reference guide. This really isn't all that essential as a book, unless you really want to have this quick reference. If you want to look something up, you can look it up right immediately. And even in this book, I like it, but there's a lot of stuff in the front end of this book that just isn't necessary. Like campaign setting fluff, like the organization of the Outer Planes, the role of the Dungeon Master, the style of game, like the points of light and darkness thing, the world is mysterious, things the DM can do to make the game more interesting, describing the 3 tiers of play. I didn't think those were really all that interesting, or describing what the dice are, like a chapter on dice. I actually think you could have cut this book by about a third, and it would have been a more condensed and efficient use of resources. Heroes of the Fallen Lands is basically a class book. Is it fair to say? Yeah. This is basically like it's like 4 races, like the starting races, like human, elf, dwarf, and they actually don't do half elves. What else do they do in this book? Let me see. Hang on. Where? I actually don't see. 34. This is interesting, right? Okay. Dwarf, Eladrin, Elf, Halfling, and Human. Which I always thought was... Eladrin is still a race I don't really get. There's a lot of subdivisions in types of elves, like high elves, wood elves, dark elves, and things like that. There was always a lot of difference there, even in AD&D, and so they've done this thing with like Eladrin, which are kind of extra-dimensional elves. They're like elves, but super elves. They really want to push this Feywild thing, and so they come from the Feywild, which is like the nature dimension. I don't know. Eladrin are kind of weird. They have this really annoying habit of teleporting. But there's no half-elves in that book, which is kind of interesting. But the main feature of this one is the classes. And so you can play this book just as... You can play the game with this book alone, because it includes basically only 4 classes. It includes... Well, that's not fair. That's not fair to say, because there's different variations of the various classes. But there's... The cleric, which they call a war priest, which is basically your D&D cleric, and it's got a much. There's the fighter, which is the there's 2 types of fighter. There's the knight and the slayer, and the slayer is what you think of more often when you think of your traditional definition of the fighter, like the guy who's really good at weapons and dealing damage. He's a slayer, he does exactly what he says. He's not like the defender fighter, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's the thief, which is a subclass of rogue, but it's really like the thief as you expect the thief to be. And there's the mage, which is a subclass of wizard. And that the mage is what I really like from this book, and it was exactly what I was saying a mage should be. And what I was missing was in AD&D, what you did was you had a spell book, and you had a lot of spells, but every morning you had to memorize a certain subset of those spells, and those were the only spells you could cast, and once you'd cast them, they were gone. So it was a very tactical way of thinking, where there was a lot of strategy when you were playing a magic user in AD&D, where, when you started your day, you had to select your spell loadout tactically depending on the situation you thought you were going into. So if you're going into a dungeon, your spell loadout would be much different from your normal everyday spell loadout. So in this version, it goes back to that, where your mage has a lot of different powers, but every morning you can only memorize a certain subset of those powers, and only use those until you memorize new ones. And so that was what I was getting back to. And so that's really what I liked about the Essentials line, was you're going back, and it's simpler to me, where not only are the classes falling much more rigidly into their defined roles, where a cleric heals, and there's 2 different types of cleric. There's the storm cleric, who's like the damage dealing cleric, who's kind of like kind of a berserker cleric, the war priest again, and then there's the sun cleric, who is basically like your lawful good, goody healing and turning undead type guy. Things like that. The thief is the guy who, he does backstabs and stuff like that. And actually, let me see the thief, because the rogue does backstabs as well. What's the difference? Let me see. Level 1 backstab. They actually call it a backstab. They don't call it a sneak attack. Rogue. I should actually look at this one, because I was really impressed with all the others, but I didn't read the thief all the way through. Another thing that really impressed me was, and I'm not sure when they're going to do an official version of this, but online on D&D Insider, they did an Essentials version of the Assassin, which I loved that class. I downloaded the Assassin class from the D&D Insider site, and it's awesome. It really was cool. And I didn't like the Assassin in the 4th edition D&D, because the 4th edition assassin is this weird guy who basically sells his soul to some dark power. And so they have like these weird I'm trying to think of a superhero that's equivalent. They almost have like Green Lantern powers, where they manipulate shadows with their minds, and they use the shadows to assassinate people. So like, I remember one of the stupidest powers I had was called Executioner's Noose, where I would throw like a noose made of shadows around a guy's neck, and then use it to pull him towards me. It was like the Scorpion. Come here! You know? Just weird stuff you wouldn't think an assassin... I guess my mindset of an assassin was not quite a guy throwing shadowy ropes of shadow from the shadows and snaring people. And they did this thing where they would drop what's called Executioner Shrouds, or Assassin Shrouds, which were like magic effects. It was so meta game. So it was almost literally like what you'd expect from World of Warcraft, where if you had a rogue who could drop stacked poison effects, or like, basically that's it, where, you know, you'd have like some kind of poison where you would dose the guy 5 times with poison, and then it would systematically do more damage the more layers of poison you put on the guy. That's what the shrouds are, basically, is every round you would drop a shroud on the guy, and the shroud does nothing until during one round you can choose to drop the shrouds, and if you hit with an attack on the turn you drop the shrouds, you do an extra D6 or D8 points of damage for every shroud you put on the guy. So in one round you could do like, you could hit with your knife and drop 4 shrouds and do an additional 48 points of damage. And the more shrouds you had on, the more damage you would do, because if you dropped them all at once, it would do more damage. And so it was a really weird type thing where you'd be doing like these magic effects where you're kind of dancing around and not hitting for... In fact, your assassin, when he started a fight, wouldn't be able to really do much damage for the first like 3 rounds. And so that was your real goal. It actually worked as a class. I'm not saying it was a bad class, but it didn't feel like an assassin class. I was actually getting really good at it and doing a lot of really cool stuff with the assassin class, because the real challenge of that one is being able to figure out how do I do more damage as this class? How do I drop shrouds more quickly? And there's a lot of ways to do that. A lot of ways to like maximize your potential, but it was a really different class than what I was expecting. So the Essentials Assassin is nothing more than a thief who is fucking maximized for instant brutality. He is all about doing an insane amount of damage now. So like his first hit, if he gets a backstab in his first hit, he will fuck you hard. Like, I mean bad. He will end your ass. And so as the assassin levels up, again, he's not much in a one-on-one fight, but if you put him in situations where he excels, he'll get new powers that will like basically maximize his killing potential. Like he'll do. I remember one cool one was if he drops a guy below 10 hit points at a certain level, he just kills you. I was like, that's kind of cool. You know, it'll be really annoying for a DM for a guy who does that, but that's an assassin. You know, it feels like he's just assassinating people. And so what I really liked about the other thing I really liked about the assassin was the weapon choices. I think more than any other class, I really think it's the best designed class in 4th edition history, because you have so many options of what kind of assassin you want to be. And this is where it gets cool, where your guy is not only an expert in poisons, and you have so many poisons from which to choose, it has like its own chapter dedicated to just all the fucking poisons you can use, which I thought was really cool. And so it's almost like having a mage character on top of your thief character, where you have like this whole menu of poisons, and you're like, which one do I feel like using today? You know, but the weapons were where it was really cool. And so basically, you can specialize in a certain number of weapons out of like 8 to 10 or something like that. I forget how many it is, but as you level up, you can master more weapons. But it really is like you can. Just in the terms of the assassin class, you can make 5 different assassins or more, like any number of assassins, depending on what weapons you want to specialize in. So what I mean is, you get all these really cool abilities. So like the weapons are the blowgun, and you're like, oh, the blowgun. It's like it doesn't do much damage, and it doesn't. It does, like, you know, it probably does the worst damage of all of them, and you're like, oh, blowgun, that's sissy. But the thing is, if you're using the ninja blowgun, if you do any damage with it, and you deliver poison with it, it's assumed that the character takes like max damage from the poison and immediately fails its first saving throw against it. So if you hit with the blowgun, you will poison the guy. There's other things like the garrote, the cord that you use to strangle somebody, and so it actually makes the concept of like strangling a guy like Hitman a feasible option, and you can do this during combat. Where, like, if you get behind a guy and you throw the cord around their neck, they can't scream, they can't struggle, and you're doing a set number of damage, and your grappling ability is greatly increased, so they can't get you off their back. So it's like sustained damage over the course of time. It's not great, but they will not get you off your fucking back. You know, it's really great. So where your guy is like a grappling master. There's of course the various blades. Actually, I want to look it up. Damn it. There's all sorts of various, like, short blades, like the dagger, the hand crossbow, which is actually, the hand crossbow is a really good melee weapon in this game, because it's assumed that when you're using the hand crossbow, you're using it in kind of a sneaky way to cover your escape. Like, so, like, if you're being pressed by a guy who's like raging down on you, and you're really in a bad position in one-on-one combat, you kind of have this cheap shot. You kind of Ric Flair the guy with your hand crossbow, and you shoot him when he's not expecting it. And so the hand crossbow hits, and you can immediately run away as part of this action, or you can shoot your crossbow in the middle of a move, things like that. The spear, actually, the spear was the one that I was kind of unsure about, because it was like, that's an assassin weapon, but it really does work. Where there's like a submission move you can use with the spear, where you can actually like pin a guy's arms behind his back with the spear, and if you are still, you basically, what you do is you do a grapple move with the spear, in which you kind of throw a guy on the crossface chicken wing with a spear, and if you're still holding on to the guy at the end of the next turn, you impale him through the back with your spear. So it's basically like you're doing some kind of martial arts move where you're setting him up for like this impaling death blow. It's really cool, and if you can find it, I might actually just post a link to this class because it's really cool. But I really, back to what I'm saying about before I finally get to the main event and open this stuff, I really did like I really did like what they did with the Essentials book, because it really does take it back to basics for me. You know, the classes feel like the classes they're supposed to be. Pardon me. You're not doing. I think a lot of classes lost a lot of identity because, like, even with the fighter. What happens is when it's your turn and you're this fighter, you're basically doing the same thing as the wizard, and the wizard is basically doing the same thing as the rogue, and the rogue is doing the same thing as the bard, and everyone basically has a deck of powers. And so it felt really weird to me that a fighter had a deck of powers, because fighters were never ever that complicated. The rogue was never that complicated. Nobody really had a set of powers except the cleric and the wizard, and that was it. You know, that was what they did. And so it kind of felt weird being a fighter going, I use my Berserker's Howl of Fury, and this guy has to move 4 spaces, and that guy has to attack me because he's magically compelled due to my fighter ability. And it didn't feel right. You know, I liked 4th edition, but the classes didn't feel like the classes they were supposed to be. Essentials makes them feel like it, because the fighter, he hits things. The rogue, he backstabs things. There's really not a whole lot of... And I know I'm making it sound like a good thing and a bad thing. We're like, oh, you have one thing to do now. But it makes the combat faster, and at the same time, the fighter was really never that complicated of a guy. You know, he wasn't really that guy who's like, what power should I use in this situation? Or, you know, the options were good. I will almost never complain about having options, but at the same time, it was maybe too many. So when it came to these classes, you know, when you ask the fighter, what do you want to do on your turn, the fighter's probably going to say, I stab him with something pointy, and so that's what you do in this game. And so I think it really streamlines it, makes it better. And so I actually really recommend, I know I recommended 4th edition, but honestly, I think Essentials is way better. And the main thing I complain about with Essentials, and especially in this new version, is that there really aren't that many options now. There's literally like 4 classes, and that will improve because they're doing a second book where they're including the paladin, and the various other core classes, which is good. And like I said, there's a lot of variability with the 4 core classes that are here, but I still like it. But anyway, the main complaint I still have is they've kind of fallen into this trap now, where the classes, if I'm playing a fighter, it's pretty much the same fighter as every other dude plays a fighter in the world. If I'm playing a thief, it's pretty much the same thief every other thief is being played in the world. And that's the main problem with a point-buy system for your stats, because it basically just tells you this is the most optimized. It really does. It tells you this is the most optimized stat line for a thief. And if you want to be a DPS thief, this is the most optimized build for that. It basically just hands you the class, which for pick up and play is good, but everyone's going to do that. Like, if you're going to be a DPS thief, you're going to be like, all right, I'll do that. Your thief is... Congratulations, your thief is in no way special. And so the classes, again, the classes that really impressed me in that book were the ones that still gave a lot of variability and still have a lot of options for variability, like the mage and the assassin, the executioner class for the assassin, which I was like, there's so much customizability in this one. It's really awesome. And that's where I liked AD&D. People actually, when I said I liked AD&D, people gave me shit. They're like, oh, I hate the proficiency system. I hate the non-weapon proficiencies. It sucks. It's not balanced. It's terrible. I liked the non-balanced. I liked the non-weapon proficiencies. It was good. I liked having the little class books that expanded on all the various basic classes. I liked having the kits. The kits in like the bard class, the mage kits, the fighter kits, all those kits that made them so cool to where you could pick them, and your basic class all of a sudden had a lot of identity. You could pick anything you wanted, and so actually it was a lot of options, but it didn't fall into that trap where you had all these OCCs, where you had thousands of different classes. It was kind of funny where if you wanted to make a ranger, you're like, okay, you're a ranger, but here's like 8 kits that make your ranger slightly different and give it a lot of identity. I liked that. And so I kind of think that's where D&D Essentials should really go. And I think that's pretty much where they are going. And you can play Essentials with the 4th edition, but they feel really different. So like if you're playing a Slayer, your Slayer is so much different than the core fighter in the 4th edition book. Like the fighter's flipping through all his fucking cards. Your fighter's like, I assume the berserker stance and I slash them, and that's it. That's what you do, because like that's what the fighter's all about. They just do basic melee attacks. The thief does basic melee attacks. That's all he does. That's pretty much it. They have encounter powers and they have daily powers, but those are special occasions. They have like 2 cards for their daily and special, and as they level up, they get more. But that's it. So anyway, I honestly don't know what's in this. I haven't even read the back, and it's still in shrink. So I'm going to open up the DM kit first of all. I really don't think it's anything more than... Well, I'll just open it up. So we'll see. I really wonder who's watching this. Like, if you're at all interested in me opening up a D&D box. But, yeah, by the way, the Sunday game. We probably won't play again this Halloween, but I really am trying to get this back on track for at least... I hope I'll be well enough to do it the first month of November. Assuming all goes well after the test, I'll be feeling up for it, but we'll see. Okay. Ad for more D&D products. Don't need that. A 4-panel D&D screen. And actually, I've been looking for a good D&D screen for 4th edition. I wonder if I actually had one. Did they sell one for 4E? If so, I didn't buy it. And I really would like to. Oh, I miss... You know what I really miss is sitting around a table and playing this. I like the online game, don't get me wrong. But I'm at my computer playing the online game. I really miss sitting behind my fucking screen and rolling dice back there and playing with people live. I miss that. I really don't have any friends locally that I can play D&D with. My group never... For years, I was trying to get people together. And I could only get like 3 people together, tops. And you can't play D&D with that. You got to have like 4 or 5 4 or 5 players at the least, and even like the 4th edition D&D, you really need 5 or 6 because that's what it's designed for. You know, almost from the beginning, is it's designed for 5 or 6. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder about the use. You probably can't see this too well, but there's this big table here for DMs, basically as like a. No, I guess it is useful. I almost never use this. Basically, it's like a fakey made up chart, damage by level. So like if you're just making something up on the fly and you're like, okay, a fire, but like if they trigger a trap and you've got the trap designed in your dungeon and they get hit with some kind of acid trap or a fireball or a pit or something like that, and you're trying to keep it balanced. So they're like, okay, how much damage would a normal trap do at 5th level? You look at this table and it tells you how much a trap does at 5th level. If it's a single target trap or 2 or more targets, how much damage it would do. And, you know, thinking about, I was actually kind of poo-pooing it just now, but I guess it is useful. I guess my main problem with that is I never made that kind of stuff up on the fly. If I had a trap in my dungeon, I know how much damage it does. And so, like, this table is useful when I'm making the trap, but I don't see the need for it to be in the DM screen. I guess I don't design these things for a living. I guess it is useful, especially if someone. I get it. The big thing that's useful here is the difficulty class chart, and the main center one. The prime feature is the difficulty checks for common skill usage, which is useful. But the one I really like, the one that always comes up a lot, is the summary of the status effects, which come up a lot in especially in later levels, like especially once you get past like 4th or 5th level. This comes up all the time because monsters throw out status effects like they were candy. So yeah, that always comes up, and that was always one of the more annoying things in the 4th edition, where I'm like, okay, you're dazed, and they go, what does that mean? I have to look it up. That's what dazed means. And actually, what happened was in my last tabletop game, what we did was there was somebody printed up basically signs. We would do this where we had these signs printed up that summarized all the status effects. And so what I did was when you got blinded or deafened or something like that, I would actually hang the sign around your neck, or hang it, or I would fold it up and put it in front of your sheet, so it was on both sides, so both I knew and you knew, looking at it, what the status effect was. So it was kind of a mark of shame to be given a status effect. So that was kind of cool. Anyway, kind of a cool. Well, let me see the artwork. The artwork's okay. I'm not really blown away by it. That actually kind of reminds me. The artwork is. There's an Umber Hulk hanging out with a Mind Flayer, and of course a bunch of drow. Gotta tell you, the artwork really isn't blowing my skirt up, but it's alright. What I was kind of wishing for, and what's funny is, this is a funny story. If you look, I'm actually wearing the D&D shirt that I got from PAX, from the Wizards of the Coast guys. This is a free t-shirt they were hanging out. This shirt is awesome, by the way. And I know you can't see it too well, but it's basically like artwork and shit. You can actually see the wizard, the TSR wizard on the side of that. I should get this tattooed. Love this guy. But I really liked, that was the bus they had out in front had like original TSR D&D artwork, like that very distinctive heavy lines drawing on the front. The artwork on the van was very cool. I really like that. I really like that nostalgic art style. The way they were going back to, what was I thinking? I wish I could classify, but if you ever saw the old, like the first edition AD&D, or even further back, like the original Dungeons and Dragons, I really wish what they do is they'd go back to the old black and white, the old font, the old font typeface in the book. Pardon me. The old, basically even the old layouts, go back to using the old art style. Go back to using words like demon and devil and stuff like that. You know, really creepy fucking artwork on the books. I really wish they'd go back and do that. You know, I miss that, and so I kind of thought when I saw the bus, that's how the Essentials line was going to look. Was they were gonna do that with the really old art style. I dug it, but I kind of wish they'd do that with the DM screen. If I'm also talking about the books, I kind of like. At first, I was kind of turned off by this, but then I liked it. This is basically like it's a little bigger than a standard paperback book, but that's what it is. It's not at all like the hardback style books, which actually I grew up with almost predominantly was the hardback style books. And so this is somewhat at odds with my desire to see the old school style books, which were all hardback, by the way, except for the little splat books for AD&D. But this kind of works. You know, I kind of like having books that I can fit on a shelf. The big books fit on a shelf, but I have to have big shelves for them. But yeah, I kind of like this. My main complaint against the design is I always really wish I could have players' handbooks that lay flat, and they don't. You know, even the hardback books never lay flat. And what's funny is the Hackmaster books that I used to have, that I still have, I had them. I basically cut the spine off, and I had them ring bound so they would lay flat, because I used those so much, and they wouldn't lay flat. And so I basically destroyed my Hackmaster books so they would lay flat with ring binding. Let's see. There is a 2-part adventure. Basically, I'm guessing an introductory adventure for DMs, which is cool. Oh, that reminds me. The red box. That's what I was thinking of. Was the red box. They actually did that old school style with the red box. Even going so far as to basically do like an old school style D&D adventure in that book, which was a solo quest. If you haven't seen the red box, I may have talked about it, but if you know anything about D&D, you don't need it. But I liked it because for noobs, it's great. Like, it is exactly what you need. If you know nothing about D&D, get the D&D Red Box starter kit. Great stuff. It runs you through a choose your own adventure that gives you a feel for the gameplay style, gives you a feel for the classes. You can play through it several times and kind of get a feel for all the various classes. And it used the old school art style. It's the Red Box, you know. It used the old font. Actually, well, not in the books, but on the box, it used the old font. It used the old logo. Very cool stuff. I liked it. Yeah. So let me actually see the back of the box. See what kind of adventure this is. 2 books containing Reavers of Harkenwold, a ready-to-play 2-part adventure. Huh. And it's got okay. So this is the adventure rundown, and it's got maps for the adventure, basically like battle-ready maps you can lay on a table and play those. I always really liked these. Actually, what's funny was I used to buy basically every D&D adventure I could get for 3.5 and 4th edition. Not because I wanted to use the adventures, but because I liked the maps. I can't draw worth a shit. So, when it comes to like floor plans and layouts and dungeon maps and caves and castles and battle encounters, anytime there was an adventure that had maps in it, I have like 5 or 6 books of just dungeon maps and floor plans that I use, and I almost never read the adventures. But I whip the map out and I use that. And so people will be like, "Oh, you're." I'll throw a map down on the table and they're like, "What is this? A pre-published adventure?" Which is there's no shame in doing that, but I honestly don't often run pre-published adventures, but I do, but not often. But I will use the maps out of them, which is cool. So I really like having maps all the time, and it really, the games are designed for tabletop play and using maps. And I have a Chessex mat, which I draw on with wet erase markers, and the players really like that, and it's good, but having the maps is also really awesome, and I like the dungeon tiles as well. The only problem with the dungeon tiles is you have to buy a lot of them, and you collect them, and so you have this big box of assorted dungeon tiles, and you're sifting through trying to find out what you need. But they still are useful, but you do kind of have to categorize them depending on what you need. But they still really work well. It's when you're DMing the game like that, it's all about really having a system, and like if you can draw simple geometric shapes quickly with a pen, get a Chess X battle mat. It works really well, and I used it for years before I cannibalized modules for their adventures. Before I had dungeon tiles, I use that map all the time. In fact, my battle mat is probably, geez, I got that in high school, probably 1996. That map is old. It's all stained, it's beaten up, but it still works. Chess X mats, really good stuff. Let's see this. There's a big insert. It's been sent to detention. Wow. That's weird. And the Dungeon Master's book, which is actually... Wow, I can't even use this. Let's see. I'm going to read a book on camera. It's going to be really awesome. What actually... I might actually split it up and do the gamma roll thing next, just so you can... If you want to skip to that one, you can. Okay. Size. They're the same size, but the actual cover material feels different. Oh, yeah, this is how much of a nerd I am, by the way. I know you can't see this, but I put contact paper on the cover. This is an old habit I used to do when I had paperback books. I would put contact paper to protect the covers. Because we would spill Mountain Dew on these all the time, and it wasn't a lot of protection, but sometimes it would afford you that critical protection, because back in the day, your books would see a lot of wear, because we used to play all the time. I used to carry them around in my book bag at school, and they got beaten up. And so, you know how bad your books and textbooks and folders could get in your backpack, where they get beaten up just from sheer use? You had to do this. You had to clear coat your books, or I did, because I treated my books hard. I loved them, but I loved them hard. So let me see. By the way, this was actually used. This was used in 3.5. This piece of artwork, I recognize this. It was in an old dungeon magazine. Okay, I really don't think this is going to be at all different from the DMG that I got, the hardback. I'm trying to see if there's any immediate differences right off the bat, and I'm not seeing it. This might actually be the exact same book. Because, like I said, they didn't change. I don't think they really changed any of the rules. They did errata, and they updated them to make sense. But the core mechanics of the book, the combat, the skill checks, I didn't notice change. But the character classes, they updated. So they make a lot more sense, and they fall much better into their strictly delineated rules. You know what I mean? I think there's more traps in here, but they might have actually done something to make skill challenges. I'm actually looking at the skill challenges chapter now. They might have done something to make those a lot more feasible, because honestly, when I read that chapter in the DMG, I was like, I'll give this a try, and I tried it, and it didn't work. Skill challenges feel weird to me. If you don't know, what happens with the skill challenges is, like, you get this really complex scenario, and I think this is the scenario they give you in the book, where, like, you're trying to convince a king or a duke or something like that to send the city watch and exterminate a group of orcs who are, like, outside the town gates. And so the DM goes, that's kind of a complex encounter. Let's do a skill challenge. And so what they do is, the DM says, you need to accumulate five successes at the skill challenge before you get 5 failures. And if you do that, then the Duke will do what you say. So they'll do things like, the players have to come up with a way to use their skills to help convince the Duke that killing the orcs is bad. So one way you could do it is the guy will use, I'll use my diplomacy. And so one player rolls his diplomacy, and if he succeeds at a certain DC, that's a success. And the guy will be like, well, what if I bluffed and I said, there's not that many, you can take them. You know, if you send some guards with us, will have it no problem, and so you'd lie, and so that'd be the skill challenge, and it would work. Or a guy could be like, I could use my intimidate, and it browbeat the Duke into sending him, and so they're like, that'd be pretty hard, so that's a higher difficulty, but if you succeed, you get a success on it. And so there's other ways, like using your knowledge and explaining the terrain, like saying like, oh, I have intimate knowledge of the terrain, and so right away, you know, I'm going, this is kind of fiddly. I'm not sure that I want to do that, you know. Here's the problem with skill challenges. Not only are they kind of metagame, where I'm like, I've kind of reduced what should be kind of role-playing encounters to a series of dice rolls, to where like there's another example where like I think some guy runs away from you, and he runs through a bazaar, and he's lost in the shopping district, and it's a skill challenge to try to find him. And so you have to use your streetwise, and you have to use your tracking, and you have to use your diplomacy maybe to ask people where the guy went, you know, things like that. And so time is of the essence. You got to do it quickly, and so that's your skill challenge. That's probably the only way I ever found where it actually might make sense to do that. But I just found it was like, I guess I'm just not smart enough to design a scenario where the skill challenges come into play. I still need to work on that. It actually might be in the dungeon magazines that there are like online copies where they explain how to make skill challenges work, because I'm not really seeing it. And when I tried it with my group, it didn't work out. Like they just, I basically even announced that it was a skill challenge. I was like, okay, you've got this situation now. I need you to tell me ways in which you can use your skills to make this work. And they could have done better. They didn't do well at the skill challenge, but even so, that was such a weird scenario for them to be in, where all of a sudden I kind of announced this mini game in the middle of the game, and I'm like, okay, you got to impress me with the way you use your skills, when it really should have just come down to role playing. You know, like I play the Duke, and whoever's doing the talking plays the guy trying to talk me into sending orcs, and so, you know, I would have the guy role play him trying to talk me into sending the guards, and depending on how well he did, if he convinced me, I would give him, or I would say, okay, or I would say, okay, roll diplomacy, and if he really impressed me with his role playing, I would give him a bonus to the roll, and if he got if he beat my difficulty number, which would be around 15 or whatever, depending on how tight resources were, I'd come up with a number, and if he beat that number, if he impressed me with his role playing, that'd be it. It'd be one dice roll, one and done. And really, I want him to be able to roleplay that. You know, I want that player to be able to talk to me and convince me. You know, give me an argument. He doesn't need to speak in these and thous and stuff like that. He doesn't need to affect an accent. He doesn't need to be crazy. But to be able to talk to me as a character and say, you know, these people are a grave threat to your lands. You need to send people immediately or people will die. You know, something like that. I'd be like, okay, fair enough. You roleplayed it. I'm with you. To be able to do that kind of parlay back and forth is what really sells D&D, man. I don't like the skill challenges because they kind of take that out of the game. They kind of take the role-playing out, and they're like, okay, roll your dice, and roll your dice a lot, and use your skills. And at the same time, I get why they're there, because if you've got a lot of points in diplomacy, it helps mitigate the fact that you might not be that great of a role player. You know, it is a little bit of escapism. Like, let's say I was not nearly as charismatic and stunning as I am, and I'd be like, I just want to talk to the guy and convince him to do that. I'd be like, okay, roll diplomacy, and that's why you play like a bard. So, like, if you're not this charismatic singing Casanova, you have a really high diplomacy because your character does, you know. Or that's if you're playing a wizard with 18 intelligence, you don't obviously, like, even I in my genius don't have an 18 intelligence. Even I would just like to be able to roll a die and be like, I impress him with my intelligence and do that. But I get both sides of it. But I really like having the role playing, and the skill challenges kind of take that away from me. So that's pretty much all that's in the DM kit. I think it works fine. It really is just, well, I was about to minimize it and saying it's just the DM guide with sample adventure. But it does have the DM screen, and so the DM kit with the DM screen bundled is alone pretty much the price I paid for it. What did I pay for it? It's actually a numbered copy. Can you believe that? $40? Wow, that's a lot. I might have to take that back. $40, especially for a book I kind of already have. I don't know. If you don't have it, pick it up. Let me think about that. Let me unfold that one. $40. I don't think I paid $40 for that, did I? I think I got it off Amazon. Can't have paid $40 for that. I probably paid $30. But yeah, for a DMG and a screen, if you don't already have it, that's pretty good. Like I said, you might argue I kind of blew my money on this one because I already have a DMG, and I really don't think this does much more to update it, except rules updates. Actually, there's been so much errata on the 4th edition. Having a book with the latest updates is probably a really good thing because there's a lot. There's a lot. Even the core player's handbook I have, there's so much. I have like 16 pages of errata on that book. And it's actually kind of important stuff too, like 2-hit roll, skill checks, and things like that. Kind of stuff where when you make a character, you pretty much have to check the errata for all your powers because so many of the powers have changed. So yeah, you know what? I'm turning on that one. Just having a DMG with the latest errata in it is probably worth it. And the DM screen is actually, it looks pretty well designed. And hey, I won't turn down free, I didn't mention this, the maps, but it also has punch-out counters, which I think are kind of cool. The artwork's pretty good on them, by the way. I still like having miniatures. I'm the guy who used to collect miniatures. I worked in a game store, and we had like 2 walls covered with fantasy miniatures. Not pewter, but yeah, it was pewter. We actually did have a few lead miniatures, but I might still have some. I might actually have, Boot Hill. I think I still have some lead Boot Hill miniatures. Way back in the day. Like, I think old Ral Partha miniatures, which were cool. I couldn't paint worth a shit. I painted one miniature that was really good, and I painted some Warhammer minis, but I had a friend who painted them like all the time. He was really good, and he did a bunch for me, but I still like the miniatures. And honestly, the not HeroClix, the D&D pre-painted miniatures, I don't think they make them anymore, but the old set were actually, by the end of it, they got really good at making those, which are really good. So anyway, I'm going to stop the video here, because I've been talking about this for a long time, and I'm going to cut, and I'm going to come back, and we're going to do Gamma World, because that one should actually be a way more interesting unbox, because this looks like a very unusual game, and I actually don't know much about it. So we're going to find out together. So until next time, we'll be right back. Okay, now that I've bitched about D&D for a long time and bored everyone who doesn't care about D&D. Oh, by the way, if you've never played Baldur's Gate, or I think Baldur's Gate 2 might actually be on Good Old Games, GOG.com. Really fun. Now, I played those games to death back in the day, so I really don't want to play it, but they're worth checking out, and they use the old D&D rules, which is kind of cool. Anyway, Gamma World. Really fired up about this one, not only because it's really colorful. In fact, it reminds me a lot of Deadlands Weird West, which I actually played. I played Deadlands Weird West way more than I played Gamma World. I played mostly because Gamma World was before my time. It was just before, basically, it was like the edition before I grew up playing D&D. So I only played it one time, and it was kind of basic in the way it was designed. And so there really wasn't a lot of balance in mind when I think that game was designed. Like I said, I only played it one time, and we kind of fell into a problem where what happens is you pretty much everyone who was a mutant got a random power from a table. So, most everyone got basic offensive powers, heat vision or claws coming out of your hands or stuff like that. But there was always one guy who got Death Field. I think it was Death Field, where basically what it was you emitted a field of death. Everything around you died. Plant life would die. Small animals would just be sucked of life. And people would take damage just from being in your presence. So, depending on how severe the death field was, you would like. I remember one guy. He got the death field. I think he rolled like the maximum severity on the death field. So the guy was just like a walking apocalypse. Like you couldn't be near this guy. You couldn't be within 100 yards of this guy. He'd fucking kill you. You know. So this guy was just he was like the most unholy fucking dude on the planet because one die roll derailed that whole campaign. Now I know you'd be like, well, re-roll it. I know, but like I said, we were young back then, and I think there were like 5 or 6 powers in that book that were kind of like the death field thing. I'm glowing green. Look at this. Okay. I just saw myself in the screen. Anyway, let's check this out. Now, one thing I'm kind of uneasy about, and I haven't seen this yet, hang on, is that apparently in this game, you get your powers from a deck of cards. Now, I'm not uneasy about that. Because, like I said, Deadlands was awesome. And Deadlands, Deadlands has one of my favorite character generation systems ever. Because it used the deck of cards and you would deal out basically like I forget how many, like 16, I think it was? Pardon me. You deal out like 16 cards, and you could ditch a certain number of them, and the cards you picked would determine your stats. And I loved that. That was so good. Especially since if you got like a Joker or you got an Ace or something like that, those were really special. And so it was actually a really special character creation process, and it really did create characters with a lot of different strengths and weaknesses. And so the number determined what die you rolled, and the suit determined how many dice you rolled. So you had a lot of different extremes on that one. So you could have a guy with like a D4 strength. If you got a 2, it'd be a D4. But if you got a 2 of spades, you rolled 4 4-sided dice, which was actually really good. And in some ways a lot better than getting a 12-sider, but only getting one of them. Because, so with the 44, you were not likely to roll very high, but you weren't ever going to really roll low. With the 1d12, you could roll really high, but your potential for failure was extreme. So I really like that. And actually, I got really mad with Deadlands and Savage Worlds, which Deadlands basically became Savage Worlds, when they took that out. They took out the cards, the playing cards. But anyway, Gamma World has like it's not playing cards, it's like collectible cards. And I'm gonna see. Oh, here they are. Let's see. 2 full-color, double-sided, fold-out battle maps. And I'm unpacking this stuff already. Here's the rule book. I love the art scheme. This is very... I'm going to show you. It's very comic booky and very colorful. I like it. Very heavy inks. It is a lot different from the original Gamma World. I remember the Gamma World box I got was very red and very... I don't want to call it gothic, but it wasn't gothic. But very, very different from this. It seems like they're really embracing the madness with this Gamma World. You've got this crazy. It's basically like the D&D equivalent of Fallout. Not quite like Fallout because you've got way more obvious mutants and stuff like that. A lot of more magic powers and stuff like that. That's a lot more different kinds of monsters. It's a post-apocalyptic, mutant-heavy world, but I get D&D Fallout is the closest thing I could come to describing it. Let me see. Yeah, you got these cards, which, as I recall, what you do is when you make your character, you overturn a certain number of cards, and those cards are what your powers are. So this one says bio-accelerated reflexes. You kick your reaction speed into overdrive. As a free action, when you start your turn, you gain a +2 bonus to attack rolls and to all defenses until the end of your next turn. In addition, you shift 3 squares and take a standard action. And then it says overcharge. When you use this power, you can roll a d20. If you roll a 10 or higher, you can use this power a second time on your next turn while this card is readied. But if you roll a 9 or less, at the end of your turn you are stunned. So if you use the power inside to, you use the power to get a 2 bonus to attack rolls and defenses, and move 3 extra spaces. So the accelerated reflexes make you faster, and they make you increase your ability to hit. And if you want to overcharge it, you can do it again the next turn, but if you fail, you're stunned. That's kind of cool. I might actually open these in a second and kind of flip through them. Let me look at the book here and see if I can get to the character creation real fast. Oh, that's cool. I love the color scheme. I keep going back to this, but they actually show a picture of the character sheet, and again, it's probably not too great on camera, but I like the whole color scheme. If I can actually get color copies of that character sheet, that would be so cool. If they actually start selling pads of these character sheets, I will so buy them. Or if they do, you know what they need to do? I hope they do this, where they I actually have the D&D character builder from D&D Insider, and I don't know if they've done this, but I don't know if they've included the Essentials line in the software. They really should. You know, that's the one main thing about D&D that's really killing me right now, is their website is really poorly maintained. Like, aside from the magazines, like the Dungeons and Dragon magazine, it's not good. And the software, they promised, the whole purpose behind 4th edition was they were promising huge web integration, gaming rooms where you can like social network and meet basically what we're doing on Sunday, but we did it ourselves. But they were promising, you know, online game rooms where you can get together, use map software, and bring monsters and bring your classes into the game software and do this. And they never did that. They kind of implemented, I won't say half-assed, but let's say 3/4-assed character builder. And the character builder works, but it's not great. And I would really be stunned if they updated the character builder with the Essentials line. I don't think they did. If I'm wrong, let me know, and I'll eat my words. But they really dropped the ball on getting some web integration on games like this, because this would be so awesome. I need to get a color laser printer. I want to get one of those. So they're so expensive. If you see on my Amazon wish list, I got one up there. It's like $580. God damn. Oh man. Anyway, let's see. How do I play? Getting started. Set aside the cards from the booster pack. You don't need them to start playing, since players can draw from the starter decks until they have a chance to build their own decks. Huh. The mutant abilities your character gains and the advanced tech he or she finds are highly unpredictable. One minute you could have feelers that help you avoid walking into walls in the dark, and the next minute you might manifest a deadly disintegrating touch. Okay, I'm starting to cool on this one. The gear you find might be a 25th century teddy bear or a fusion rifle. These variable aspects of your character are reflected by the Alpha Mutation and Omega Tech cards you draw during play. The Gamma World Games includes a deck of 80 cards, but you can build your own mutation and tech decks by purchasing additional D&D Gamma World booster packs. Hang on a second. Losing my voice. Okay, that's weird. The booster pack included with the starter shows you a sample of the cards you can get. Oh, I'm not sure I like that. Huh, hang on. Let me see. Using cards. The D&D Gamma World game includes an unusual element, collectible cards that represent your most powerful or unusual mutations and the items of advanced technology you possess. These are known as Alpha Mutations and Omega Tech. You can play using only the starter cards that came in the game box, but a player can create a customized character by building his or her own mutation and Omega Tech decks from booster packs. Likewise, the Game Master can also customize his or her own decks. Before a game, the Game Master sorts the cards from each starter deck by type, creating a mutation deck and a tech deck, and shuffles them, and keeps them separate. The cards in the game box are part of the Game Master's decks. Players can use either the Game Master's decks or create their own decks from booster packs. Each player-created deck must include at least 7 cards of the proper type, mutation or tech, and can't have more than 2 copies of any specific card. No fear filling your Omega Tech deck with nothing but fusion rifles. The Game Master doesn't use cards for monsters or villains, they're only for player characters. Sometimes players draw cards from the Game Master's deck and sometimes from their own decks, if they have them. A card can be in one of three locations. Cards that you haven't drawn are in your draw deck. There are 2 draw decks for Mutation and Tech. When you draw a card, place it face up on the table and it becomes readied. When you have a card readied, you can use the power or benefit described on them. You can only have a limited number of mutation cards readied at a time, but you can have any number of tech cards applied. Put cards you have expended in a discard pile. Don't return them to a draw deck. Discard your mutation cards at the end of each encounter. Oh. I see. Huh. I'm not sure I like that. It's kind of weird. Okay, so what they're saying is, basically at the start of every encounter, if I'm reading that right, you get a certain, well, I'm not sure I'm reading that right. 66 it said. That's cute. And the pages aren't numbered. Oh, what the fuck? Okay, immediate flaw right there. I don't think they're numbered. Okay, hang on. Let me keep reading this. All D&D Gamma World heroes have access to wild, unpredictable abilities known as Alpha World Power. Alpha Powers, not World. In effect, you're able to manifest special powers by drawing an alternate world lines in which you naturally possess them. Hyper time! Some heroes do this through exercises of logic and concentration. Others do it by intuition or feel, or even by accident. A moment of panic or rage trips a switch, and suddenly you're not exactly the person you used to be. Alpha mutations are 3 distinct sources of energy: bio, dark, and psionics. Using them in play. When you're ready to be in a game session, you shuffle your deck, and the Game Master shuffles his deck. Don't shuffle each other's decks. You draw 1 alpha mutation card from your deck. Okay, I'm sorry. When you're ready to begin a game session or resume adventuring after an extended rest, shuffle your deck. Then draw 1 mutation card. If you're 4th level or higher, you draw 2, and so on. The cards you draw are your readied alpha powers. You gain any benefit from your alpha mutation cards until that card is discarded. And at the end of the encounter, discard your readied alpha mutation cards and draw a new card to replace it. You can draw a new card from your own deck if you have one, or from the Game Master deck. That card is your new readied alpha power. Whenever you roll a natural 1 during an encounter on any d20 roll, you experience an alpha flux. I hate when that happens. After your current action is resolved, discard one of your readied alpha mutation cards. This discarded card can be one whose powers you have used, or one whose powers you have not used. Then draw a new card from the Game Master's deck. That might actually be really hard keeping track of whose cards are whose, especially if you're not part of the Game Master's thing. Rebuild your mutation deck. When you stop for an extended rest or end a game session, return the alpha mutation deck card to its deck, or return it to the Game Master. Then you can rebuild and switch cards out. Like I said, I'm not sure I like that. Still love the artwork, though. Yeah, let's see this one. He's got a parking meter he's hitting people with. So, basically, whenever you start the session or whenever you end an encounter, you swap out your power with a new power. Huh. I wonder how much that really affects gameplay. Because that seems like it could be huge. You know? Huh. I'm guessing the core concept of your character is the same. Like, I don't think... I wouldn't know until I played it, obviously. But that could either really not be that much. Like, it could be like a really a helpful added benefit. Or not do much. But I don't know how much of a game changer that is. Like I said, I'm not sure I like that, where your powers can just radically change depending on the situation. Or like whenever after a fight, all of a sudden you just sprout a third arm, and then after the end of the next fight, the arm drops off, and you have heat vision. That seems weird. I guess that's the whole scheme of the game. I guess I'd have to play it to see how well it works. I guess as long as you just lighten up and play the game, it's not a big deal, because I think that's the point of this game, is just lighten up and have some fun with it. I guess we'd have to see. It does sound like fun, where that way you're not stuck with a game breaker power. You're not stuck with, one guy's got one power, and that kind of reminds me of a game like Heroes Unlimited, or one of my favorites, actually, Marvel Superheroes. I really like Marvel Superheroes, but most superhero games fall into a trap where I find that in the game, like, let's say you're playing Cyclops. Cyclops has one answer to everything. He shoots it with his optic beams from the punch dimension. Like, there's really not much to Cyclops when you think about it. He's like, pew, 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 pew. That's it. That's pretty much it. And, Wolverine, actually, they've done a lot with Wolverine to give him a lot of, to make him more than a guy who just scratches shit. Like, they have him work together with people like the fastball special and stuff like that. But still, at the end of the day, when it comes down to what Wolverine does, But yeah, Cyclops is the one I keep going back to, where he's like, psst, psst, psst. Even the Human Torch, he flies around, he does stuff. He doesn't, and he has more effects than just throwing fire and stuff. But Cyclops, fuck that guy. But yeah, I could see in Gamma World having a character who, let's say you get a mutation of heat vision, and that's what he does. He does heat visions everybody, and I would see that getting really boring, really, because would you even have to ask what Cyclops does in a turn? Okay, the ninjas attack Cyclops. What do? I shoot him with my beam. Like, do I have to ask? The only thing you'd have to ask is which one do you hit with your shooty beam, and that's it. So, that might actually help to shake it up quite a bit. I don't like the idea of building your own decks with booster packs. That seems like the height of lameness. I don't like that. Where you have your own deck of powers that you've custom built. And, I don't like that. That just seems so unbalanced, where you have a guy who's basically twinking out his deck and intentionally breaking your game. Yeah. I think if you're going to do the booster packs, just have everyone build up the Game Master deck and have a communal deck, and everyone draw from that. Don't do this shit when you're fucking building your own deck with all your own stuff and equipment and things like that. Ugh, lame. And what really kills me with that one is they sell the booster packs, and I was actually looking for the booster packs. I was just curious, and it's actually kind of hard to find. I don't know if they've actually gone wide with those booster packs yet, but here's what it is. They sell the booster packs. I think the projected price is $3.99 for 8 cards. 8? $4 for 8 cards. Fuck you. That's lame. $4 for twice that many cards would be lame. I remember $2.99 for booster packs at Magic. What was that? 15 cards, 16, something like that. I was feeling ripped off paying that. $3.99 for 8 cards for a role-playing game, trying to twink out my own deck and almost assuredly pissing the DM off by building my deck with all sorts of custom shit. No. I might see a DM chipping in and buying a few boosters just to spice the Gamma World deck up every now and then. But do not, if I ever play with any of you, do not bring your own deck. You're playing out of this deck, okay? You're playing out of this fucking shrink-wrapped starter deck. We're doing a starter draft. Kind of a weird collision between CCG and role-playing game, and I don't like it. Good thing you don't have to play that way, because I'm not. Let's see. Here's one. It's all shrink-wrapped. What the fuck? Hang on. It's all shrunk together. Hang on, let me sorry. Game components. 2 full-color, double-sided, fold-out battle maps. I'm not sure what this is. I don't know if you can... Here, I'll show you this. This comes in the box. I'll put it back in the box. This might actually come into, like, if there's a starting adventure. There's kind of like this... This is what the box looks like, okay? But up here, you can kind of see, like, they've got something, like, drawn on it. Some kind of, like... map? It almost looks like this is intended for the game. Let's see. This game uses 4th edition D&D role-playing system as its foundation. Create a mutant hero in minutes. 160-page book of game rules and adventures. No page numbers on the books. And well, what's funny was it referred me to a page number. I swear it did. Didn't it? Page 69. There's no page numbers. Stupid! Okay. 2 cardstock sheets of character and monster tokens. Yeah, we got that. Yeah, again, you got more tokens. Big monsters and small monsters. Let me open this up. There's actually a booster pack in here. They give you one. Kind of looks cool. Let's see if it says anything. No, not really. 8-card booster pack. Shit. That's not a lot of cards. One gets the feeling they really want to do something special with those cards. Like, I don't even know what. Like, almost do different editions of them. Like, cybernetic heroes or something like that. Like a special set of cybernetic powers, or a special set of radiation powers, or biomutations, or space effects, like some kind of that's the 3 effects. They said, what was it? Psionics, darkness, and what was it? Bio, dark, and psi. Yeah, one almost gets the feeling like they really want to do 3 different sets, so your character can kind of specialize in one. Does that make sense? Like, if you want a guy to be like a dark hero who channels dark energy or psionics, and you want your mutations to be really heavily tailored for psionics, you could build your own deck with psi powers. And I'm actually guessing if there's feats in this book, there's probably a lot of feats that amplify your ability to do certain powers. So, like, you'll take a feat saying, like, Psionic Master, plus 2 to all powers with psionics. And so you want your deck to have a lot of psi powers. And that's why I guess you'd want to build your deck. But still, I'm really not happy with the idea of people buying booster packs to help their character. That's not fair. It's so not fair to expect people, especially people of limited means. I wouldn't do that. Like, I'm not going to build a psionic character and be like, if I bought like 5 booster packs, my character would really kick ass. Because that's so not in the spirit of role-playing. You know what I mean? That's not cool. There's a map here. A very colorful map. Again, on camera it might not be that clear what's going on. You got like this laser field here. This says to me there's actually... Oh, this is another side of the map. See that? I'm not sure. That looks like the exact same thing in the box. I like the artwork in this. Ah. Oh. They do. They give you the pink, not the, well, it is pinkish, like the violet and green sheets. They give you 4 of them. I want more of these. Oh, I love these. I love this color. I love having a colorful character sheet. This is really well. I love the graphic design on this. It's good. Oh, I really want to play this game. Character and monster tokens. And the hell of it is, I'm probably just gonna taking out these inserts. This is a really colorful, cool looking insert, but I just don't think I need it. Bonus booster pack 4 character sheets are under tray. Let's see. I'm actually kind of curious now as to what these maps relate to. I'm going to look in the book and see if there's a sample adventure. I'm guessing that's where it is. Oh, that's why. I know. Actually, I know why they put the tray in, so the cards don't slide around. But I'm probably going to end up rubber banding the cards together because the booster pack is going to fuck things up a little bit. I'll put the tray back in for now, anyway. Okay, let me see. Book. Let me see the. Oh, they got monsters back here. Let me see. Dabber, Fen, Fishfolk, Bloodbird, Gamma Moth. Bright lights attract gamma moths. Batter. What else but violence would you expect from a 5-foot-tall, intelligent, mutated badger? I don't know. I would think a 5-foot mutated badger would be fucking pissed. There's a giant mutated bunny. He fucking looks pissed. It's a bunny with a sword and a grenade launcher. Wow. Dabber. Greedy, curious, but somewhat cowardly, dabbers are highly intelligent, mutated raccoons that have a reputation for thievery. This game is awesome. Oh, here's the Hoop. Hoops are human-sized mutated rabbits that believe they are destined to rule Gammatera as a master race. Nazi rabbits? Nazi rabbits! I so want to play this. Oh. Land sharks. I've just fallen silent. This is amazing. Turtle. No, not that turtle. They are schools of 6-foot-long flying fanged fish. Try saying that 5 times fast. Okay, let me see if there's an adventure. Yeah. Yeah, here it is. Chapter 6. Steading of the Iron King. It's a Gamma World adventure for 5 first-level characters. And already I can spot another design flaw here, because if this is meant to be a starter kit, and they have their adventure designed for 5 first-level characters, they only give you 4 character sheets. I know, Xerox one, but throw 5 in there. You know? A little worried about this binding, actually. What's with the binding? It's kind of... I don't know. I'm trying to look at the binding. It kind of feels a little fiddly. It kind of runs into that uncomfortable territory where it's not quite a magazine, but it's not quite a book. I kind of wish they'd hardbound this one. It would have been a little better. But yeah, the adventures for 5 characters, they only give you 4 sheets. It's a nitpick, I know. There's a conspiracy skill. Yeah, I definitely have to run through the introductory adventure just to get a feel for the game, which I think is critical, and I really like the fact that they did this. In fact, I kind of wish they'd gone a little bit further with the introductory material, basically doing what the Red Box did in introducing introductory material, like a choose your own adventure to kind of give you the feel for the setting, for the world. A little more world fluff. Actually, I think that's my biggest complaint is I don't think there's really that much world fluff in here, like campaign setting information. I'm really almost seeing nothing. Yeah, like this is it. This is the campaign fluff, like that. In the fall of 2012, scientists at the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva, Switzerland, embarked on a new series of high-energy experiments. No one knows exactly what they were attempting to do, or what they were doing. But a little after 3 p.m. on Thursday afternoon came the big mistake. Something unexpected happened, and in the blink of an eye, many possible universes, all condensed into a single reality. Hyper time! In some of these universes, little had changed. It didn't make a big difference which team won the 2011 World Series, for example. In other universes, there were more important divergences. The Grey Emissary, who was carrying gifts of advanced technology, wasn't shot down in Roswell in 1947. The Black Death didn't devastate the known world in the 14th century. The dinosaurs didn't die out. Nikolai Tesla did conquer the world with the robot army, and so on. The Cold War went nuclear in 83% of the possible universes, and in 3% of the possible universes, the French unloaded their entire nuclear arsenal on the town of Peshtigo, Wisconsin, because it had to be done. Hard to argue that. Peshtigo? Actually, I'm not familiar with that town. When reality stabilized again, an instant after the big mistake, the familiar Earth of the 21st century was replaced by one formed from many different realities. The year is now 2162, or 151, or 32,173, or 6 monkey slap slap, depending on your point of view. I'm not making this up. Well, actually, that did kind of sell me on the setting. You know? I was complaining that they didn't really produce any fluff, but by definition, what they've done with this game is it's not really post-apocalyptic, is it's basically hyper-time butt-fuck reality, where, like, basically every reality converged on itself, and so that's kind of cool. I like that they've kind of unfolded it in a new way. I dig it. And at the same time, what is there to say? What else is there to say about Gamma World? About, basically that's the setting, is like, everything happened. You know, it's Earth, but everything's going on. But I still think it would be helpful to have a map. You know, like, again, by its nature, the Gamma World is ephemeral. You know, it's like even your characters are changing in a insane fashion over and over and over again. Just over the course of a day, they grow new limbs spontaneously. And I'm sure there's new box sets coming out which aren't out yet. Like, I think Famine and Fargo is a box set, like a campaign setting. And I'm sure we'll see more. I'd like to see more. This game has actually really sold me, and it really does seem like a lighter game that you can pick up and play. It doesn't take a real commitment to learn, which is, I'm saying that like it's a bad thing, but it's a good thing. I mean, some games you want to pick up are a little lighter, and I guess maybe with this game there's really not that much to say. But I really would like to see a campaign setting, because this looks like it could be really fun. The real difficulty in games like this are the real leader when it comes to kind of dystopian future humor-based games is paranoia. You've really got to... Paranoia is far and away the king of these type of games, and I hate paranoia, but whenever it comes to a game like this, if I were to suggest Gamma World, I fucking guarantee you my old group would have been like, why don't we just play Paranoia instead? You know, it's that sort of game. I know, seriously, I'm going to get more hate than I think I've ever gotten before. If you're actually watching this, everyone loves Paranoia. Everyone but me. So, I will admit, I am the one madman in the world doesn't like Paranoia. But there you have it. Anyway, I've been recording for a long time now. And I hope you found this unboxing of Gamma World enlightening. And I would like to play it before I would give my recommendation one way or the other. Like I said, I haven't read this book. I don't know a whole lot about it. I just showed you my first impressions. And I really can't give an educated review of this until I have played it. And I wouldn't do that because I'm a good critic. But... if I can get a game of this together, I'd love to try it. So if I do, I will let you know how it goes. But in the meantime, you guys have a good time, and have a happy Halloween. I'll probably have a commentary for Howling 2 up very soon. So the work never stops.